He had gone up the mountain to die. That's what everyone would later say. And maybe they'd be right, because Liam Walker was a man hollowed out by grief, trudging through a blizzard with no intention of ever turning back. But 10 minutes before the cold could claim him, he heard a sound no human should have heard in those mountains. A frail, broken cry echoing through the snow. When he found the source, his heart almost stopped. A dying snow leopard cub. Ice stiff, barely breathing, and alone beside the ripped remains of its mother. The cub had minutes left. Liam had no reason to keep living, and yet, in that moment, he did the one thing no one, not even he, could explain. What he chose to do next would alter both their fates, and lead to a reunion 5 years later that no scientist, no ranger, and no skeptic on Earth would ever believe. By the time the storm finally closed its fist around the mountain, Liam Carter had already decided he was done pretending he wanted to outlast it. The wind slammed into the metal walls of the rescue station so hard the cot creaked beneath him. Snow hissed against the tiny window, a white blur swirling in the beam of the yard light before it finally vanished altogether. The generator had cut out an hour ago. Now the only light came from a single battery lantern on the table, pooling around a sheet of paper covered in cramped, careful handwriting. Dear Grace. He had rewritten that first line 6 times. The rest had come out in slow, halting bursts like a reluctant confession. His fingers, stiff with cold and age, rested on the last paragraph, where the words blurred if he looked at them too long. You have every right to hate me. I don't know how to fix what I broke. I'm sorry I wasn't there when you needed a father. Liam swallowed, his throat so dry it hurt. 62, he thought. 62, and this is what I have to show for it. A rusting steel box halfway up a Colorado mountain, a shortwave radio fried by lightning, a blocked road buried under rock and snow, and one daughter who didn't pick up when he called. He slid the wedding band around on his finger, feeling the groove it had carved into his skin over 3 decades. It should have come off 3 years ago, when everything else did, but it had stayed, the way some things do out of sheer, stubborn habit. He reached up, pulled it off, and laid it on the table beside the letter. The small gold circle looked absurdly bright in the lantern light. On the far end of the table sat a plastic case with a red cross printed on the lid. Liam flicked it open with his thumb. Inside, nestled in molded foam, were 3 vials of clear fluid and a bundle of syringes banded with a rubber strip. Morphine, stocked for animals with injuries so catastrophic that mercy was the only treatment left. He picked one vial up between 2 fingers. The liquid inside glimmered when it caught the light. Half an adult dose for a man his size, maybe less. And he wouldn't have to think about the storm or the generator or the way Grace's voice had sounded the last time she spoke to him 2 years and a lifetime ago. You save strangers, she'd said then, her voice hoarse with grief and fury. But you couldn't save your own family. Don't call me again, Dad. I can't do this. The memory landed as solid and unforgiving as the steel floor under his boots. He returned the vial to its slot and closed the case. Morphine would be quick, but what he wanted was something else. An ending that looked accidental, unplanned, unchosen. Another hiker lost in a March storm, one more tragic statistic that nobody could blame on a single man's failure to keep going. The station groaned as the wind shifted. Somewhere outside, a loose piece of sheet metal banged against its fastenings in an irregular rhythm. Liam stood, joints protesting, and shrugged into his heavy parka. The zipper rasped up under his fingers. He tucked the letter into the inner pocket, then hesitated, reached back, and added the ring. If they found him at all, maybe they'd find those too. The radio sat on the workbench by the back wall, its casing cracked from where it had hit the floor during the first wave of the storm. The antenna was nothing but jagged metal. He had spent most of yesterday hunched over it with a screwdriver and an old multimeter, trying to conjure life from a dead circuit board. The last attempt had ended in a small puff of smoke and the unmistakable smell of burned plastic. It wouldn't be carrying his voice anywhere ever again. He stepped toward the door and stopped, his hand on the handle, as another sound threaded through the howl of the wind. Not metal, not snow. A low, almost rhythmic thudding from somewhere deeper in the station, the freezer unit. Liam turned back, the weight of his coat making the movement slow and awkward. The walk-in freezer was built into the far wall, a square metal door with a round handle. He pushed it open and felt the colder air roll out over his face. Dark shapes lined the shelves inside. Frozen rabbits, venison, pre-packaged diets for injured hawks and coyotes, and the occasional mountain lion unlucky enough to cross the highway. A cardboard box had slid off the top shelf, its corner banging against the wall in time with the gusts of wind outside. He steadied it with one hand, set it back where it belonged, and stepped out, letting the door swing shut. That's all this place is now, he thought. Boxes and bones, and one old fool who stayed a little too long. He moved back to the outer door, reset his grip on the handle. The cold pressed against the seams, eager to flood inside. He could almost see himself from above, a tall, slightly stooped figure in a red parka, alone in a circle of light, about to step into nothing. The absurdity of it made him want to laugh. If you're still with us, you're part of a remarkable community here at Whispering Hearts, where real stories of extraordinary animal connections come to life. Every subscriber helps us share more heart-touching moments that reveal the power of compassion across species. Don't forget to hit subscribe, because the journey ahead is one you'll feel long after the story ends. He pulled the door open. The storm hit him like a wall. Snow knifed across his face, stinging any exposed skin. The yard light had finally surrendered. The world outside was a swirling chaos of white and gray. He yanked his hood up, bent his head, and stepped out, tugging the door closed behind him until he heard the latch catch. For a moment, he simply stood there, breathing shallowly, letting the cold sink in through his clothes, into his bones. The station's outline vanished behind him after 10 steps. The ground dropped away in soft, deceptive drifts that could conceal rocks, ice, or sudden hollows. He knew the terrain well enough to navigate in worse conditions than this. That was the point. A man who knew better should have known better than to walk out in weather like this. He started toward the line of dark he knew was the start of the tree break, boots crunching through the wind-packed snow. The world narrowed to the 50 or so feet he could see ahead and the sound of his own breathing. It would be easy to miss a footing, to turn an ankle, to fall. Easier still to keep walking until exhaustion did what grief had not quite accomplished. Another sound filtered through the roar of the wind. Liam stopped, head cocked, breath frosting in front of his face. He waited, counting heartbeats under his gloved palm. The storm rushed around him, an ocean of noise. There, thin and reedy, barely more than a thread of sound. A high, broken cry that slid in and out of his hearing. It came again, a little stronger, from somewhere off to his left. He tried to tell himself it was the wind. Storms made strange music on these slopes, branches scraping rock, snow shifting under its own weight, distant ice cracking on the ridge. But he'd spent enough winters up here to know those songs. This was different. There was a pattern to it. Fear or pain carried on a voice that simply wasn't built for this kind of cold. He should keep walking. The thought rose automatically, then faltered. Old reflexes stirred under the heavy blankets of fatigue and despair. 25 years in emergency rooms, responding to every shout, every crash, every siren. The body remembers even when the mind is tired of caring. Liam turned left. The wind hit him sideways now, shoving at his shoulders. He pushed back, following the sound. It came in bursts, there, then gone, then there again. Twice he stepped into drifts deeper than his knees, fighting to get his leg free as snow poured down into his boots. His chest burned, his heart thudded in an uneven rhythm that he ignored out of long practice. The cry came again, louder now, punctuated by a thin, rasping whimper. He crested a small rise he knew as Boulder Knob, named uncreatively for the boulder that sat at its center and nearly lost his footing as the ground dropped away in front of him. A narrow gully opened below, its edges rimmed with ice. Snow had poured in, softer here, filling the bottom in uneven mounds. At first, he saw nothing but white and shadow. Then his eyes adjusted and shapes resolved out of the drift near the far wall. A mound of fur, unnaturally still, half covered by wind-blown snow, and beside it, something smaller, struggling weakly against a world intent on erasing it. Liam's breath caught in his throat. Even at this distance, he recognized the markings, the faint patterning under the frost. Pale gray coat, darker rosettes, tail thicker than any common cat's. The adult lying in the snow was huge, her body twisted at an angle no living spine could make. One foreleg sprawled outward, claws unsheathed as if she had died in the middle of a last, hopeless strike. Pressed tight against her chest, burrowing into fur that no longer held warmth, was a cub. It cried again, a wet, ragged sound that scraped at something deep inside his chest. Its head lifted once, eyes squeezed shut against the needles of blowing snow, then sagged. The tiny body shook with violent, uncontrolled shivers. Liam stared down at them, the storm roaring around him, and for a long moment nothing moved but the snow. "You could turn around," a voice in him whispered. "Nature's already decided. It's over. You walk away, and you still get your clean ending. No one ever has to know." His hand went to the inside of his coat, fingers brushing the crackle of folded paper. The letter rested there, inches from his heart, a silent accusation. The cub whimpered again, weaker this time. One paw, no bigger than his palm, pawed blindly at the dead mother's ribs, searching for something that wasn't there. Liam closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, his feet were already moving down the slope. Before the storm cut him off from the world and before he found the dying cub in the gully, Liam Carter had already been unraveling for years, pulled apart quietly, thread by thread, until there was almost nothing left to hold him together at all. 3 years earlier, he'd walked out of Chicago with 2 suitcases and a heart full of jagged edges. He told people he needed a fresh start, needed mountains and quiet, and a purpose that didn't involve fluorescent lights and the smell of antiseptic. But the truth was simpler and uglier. He couldn't bear to keep breathing the same air that held the ghost of his wife and son. He remembered every detail of that day, the screech of tires, the crumpled metal, the way the world had narrowed to the sound of his son's breath slipping away under his hands. He remembered Grace screaming at him in the hospital hallway, her face blotchy with tears, her grief turning into something sharp enough to wound. "You should have saved them," she'd said. "You save everyone else. Why couldn't you save them?" He had no answer then. He didn't have one now. What he did have was a job offer forwarded by an old colleague who'd retired early and joined a wildlife non-profit, High Ridge Wildlife Rescue, a remote outpost in the Colorado Rockies where injured mountain lions, elk, raptors, and the occasional orphaned bear cub were brought for treatment and rehabilitation. "Good people," the email had said. "Quiet work, might give you room to breathe." Breathing felt like a luxury then. He took the job anyway. The head ranger, Ethan Novak, picked him up from the tiny regional airport in a mud-splattered utility truck. Broad-shouldered, bearded, patient in a way only mountain men seemed capable of. Ethan talked for miles about migration patterns, late-season snowfall, the upcoming environmental impact hearing, everything except the reason Liam had come. For that, Liam was grateful. "Storm season hits hard up here," Ethan warned as they wound along a narrow road carved into the mountainside. "If the passes close, you hunker down and wait it out. Don't try to leave. Don't try to fight the weather. The mountain always wins." Liam had nodded, barely listening. 3 years later, Ethan's words would echo like a prophecy. The rescue station itself was simple. Metal walls, a small infirmary, a walk-in freezer, 2 pens for recovering animals, and a cramped communal kitchen. 2 other staff worked there. Ethan, who rotated between outposts, and Maya Lynn, a wildlife biologist with a sharp mind and the kind of gentle humor that softened the hardest moments. Maya had been the only one brave enough to ask, in her careful way, about Grace, about Chicago, about the ring that never left Liam's finger. He'd answered her questions with the same evasive half-smiles he used on doctors and strangers in grocery store lines. "You don't have to tell me anything," she'd said once while rearranging medical supplies. "But I hope someday you'll let someone carry a little bit of whatever's weighing you down." He hadn't known what to say, so he didn't say anything at all. Work filled the empty spaces. He repaired broken wings, set splints on injured deer, stitched up lacerations on animals that had tangled with barbed wire or pickup trucks. His hands remembered medicine even when his heart didn't. Nights were harder. Silence pressed in like a living thing. Some evenings, when he couldn't sleep, he'd step outside to watch the tree line sway under the moonlight and try, unsuccessfully, to imagine what forgiveness might feel like. Then came the Leopard Project, a small experimental conservation initiative working with transferred snow leopards from Central Asia. The animals weren't native to Colorado, but researchers wanted to study adaptation patterns and potential genetic resilience. Liam wasn't part of the project directly, but High Ridge occasionally received injured wildlife from surrounding areas, and so the IT station needed to be kept informed. One morning, Maya showed him a still frame from a trail camera, a pale shape slipping between trees, movement fluid as smoke. "Not one of ours," she said, frowning. "Pattern's different. We're trying to confirm if it wandered from the northern corridor or if we're dealing with a rogue introduced cat." Liam studied the image longer than necessary. There was something haunting in the fluid lines of the animal's body, wildness shaped into grace. "It's beautiful," he murmured. "Yeah," Maya agreed. "I just hope poachers don't catch wind of it." He raised an eyebrow. "We've had signs, footprints, broken fence wire, a couple of snares found near the old mining road. Nothing confirmed, but..." She paused. "People get stupid when they smell money. A snow leopard would fetch a fortune." A chill slid across his shoulders that had nothing to do with the weather. The storm warnings came early that year. Meteorologists predicted heavy snowfall and unstable slopes. The rescue center had planned to rotate staff, but the landslide hit before Ethan and Maya could return from a supply run. Liam had been alone for 3 days when the sky split open. It started with rain, cold, relentless sheets that hammered the metal roof. Then the temperature plunged, turning to snow so heavy the windows went white. He tried the radio first. Static, not even a flicker of signal. He tried the satellite phone next. Dead battery, no chance to recharge it with the generator flickering. By nightfall, the road was buried, the slope behind the station creaked ominously, and a distant rumble signaled the first of several minor slides. Liam rationed power. He boiled water. He wrote the beginning of the letter to Grace, then tore it up, then wrote it again. By day 2, the generator coughed its last breath. The station's interior temperature plummeted. Liam worked by lantern light, wrapped in 2 jackets, the cold seeping up through the floor like a rising tide. Then the silence. The silence became something alive. He had never been afraid of quiet, but this quiet felt different, too deep, too absolute, like the world had exhaled and forgotten to inhale again. He tried not to think about the phone call with Grace from months before, the one where they argued until she hung up crying. He tried not to think about the morphine locked in the emergency kit. He tried not to think about the letter he kept rewriting. He lasted until the morning of the 3rd day. That day began the way the others had. cold, grey light filtering through a snow-packed window, the faint, metallic scent of freezing air. He made coffee from the last scoop of grounds, cradling the mug between his hands until the heat faded. He stared at the radio, willing it to crackle. Nothing. By noon, the wind screamed like something furious and ancient, shaking the station hard enough to rattle the cabinets. Liam finally sat at the table, pulled the letter toward him, and wrote the final lines. He folded it once, slipped it into an envelope, and laid his ring on top. He stood. He put on his coat. He took 3 steps toward the door, then froze. There it was. A sound that didn't belong in storms or snow or empty mountains. A cry. Thin, weak, impossible. He waited. It came again. And Liam Carter, who had run out of reasons to stay alive, found himself gripping the door handle, heart pounding, pulled by a sound fragile enough to die if the wind grew any stronger. A cry that would lead him into the blizzard. A cry that would change everything. The snow in the gully was deeper than Liam expected, swallowing his boots almost to the shin as he pushed his way down the slope. The wind bit through the seams of his parka, stinging his cheeks and making his eyes water until the world blurred into white and grey. But he didn't stop. Not when the cry came again, faint and breaking, carried on a gust that nearly knocked him sideways. He slid the last few feet, catching the edge of an ice-crusted branch to steady himself. The gully floor stretched out in a ragged depression scraped clean by earlier runoff. Snow had drifted unevenly, settling in soft mounds that concealed anything beneath. He scanned the ground, eyes adjusting to the dim light. Then he saw her. A female snow leopard, magnificent even in death, lay half-buried near the far wall of the ravine. Her body was twisted at a brutal angle, one foreleg stretched out unnaturally as if she'd been fighting something far stronger. Her coat, normally thick enough to endure the harshest winter, was matted with frosted blood around the throat and shoulder. Deep gouges raked across her ribcage, long and wide. Liam's breath caught. Grisly. It had to be. Even hibernating bears sometimes roused in unseasonably warm spells, confused and unpredictable. But the mother had fought back. He could tell that instantly. The snow was torn around her, trenches carved where she'd tried to pivot and shield something behind her, something still alive. The cub was curled against her stomach, no bigger than a house cat. Its eyes were squeezed shut, tiny head lifting in weak jerks as it tried to nuzzle deeper into the cold fur of its mother. Every movement looked like it cost more than it had to give. Its breath, when it came, shuddered visibly through its body. Liam approached slowly, crouching beside the pair. He reached out and brushed a layer of snow from the mother's side. Her body was stiff, the warmth long gone. He bowed his head for a moment, not in prayer exactly, but in acknowledgement. She had died where she stood, fighting for a life that wasn't her own. Then his eyes moved to the cub. Its fur was a pale silver gray, almost white at the tips, speckled with soft rosettes that blurred into each other like ink in melting snow. The wind ruffled the fine hair on its neck, revealing something beneath, an angry red puncture just below the ear. A dart wound, a tranquilizer, or a snare needle. Not the bear, not nature. Someone had tried to take this cub. The realization struck him hard, a cold shock that pushed past the numbness in his limbs. Poachers. The same shadows Maya had worried about, the same broken snares near the ridge. Had they separated the mother and cub while trying to trap one of them? Had they wounded the cub and fled when the mother attacked? Had the struggle drawn the bear? He didn't know. But the cub's eyelids fluttered weakly, a tiny sound escaping its throat, a soft, fractured cry that made the storm seem quiet by comparison. He reached out and touched the cub's neck. Ice cold, the kind of cold that shut down organs, the kind that swept through small bodies fast. Liam switched instantly into the part of himself that had saved countless emergency patients, clinical, focused, unwilling to let panic steal precious seconds. He slipped off his glove and pressed his fingers to the cub's chest. A heartbeat, but faint, irregular. He measured the breathing next. Slow. Too slow. He looked at the sky. Snow swirling, light fading. 10 minutes, maybe less. That was all this cub had before its body crossed the point of no return. He hesitated. The wind howled as if urging him to choose. He could leave it, let nature take its course. He had come out here to die anyway. This would be a cleaner ending, an untouched wilderness scene, one life fading quietly into the next. But then the cub shivered violently, its small paw stretching toward the mother's lifeless chest, trying one last time to find warmth that wasn't there. Liam swallowed hard. "Don't do this," he whispered, voice shaking. "Don't make me." The cub let out one more cry, barely a breath, and something inside him, something he thought had burned itself out the day he lost his family, twitched, a small, fragile spark. Before he could talk himself out of it, Liam unzipped his parka halfway. His fingers shook as he peeled off the top layers, outer shell, fleece, thermal shirt, until icy wind slapped directly against his skin. He sucked in a sharp gasp. Then he lifted the cub carefully, slipping a hand under the tiny ribs. The creature was nearly weightless, limp enough to frighten him. Its head lolled sideways until he cupped it gently with his thumb. "Easy," he murmured. "I've got you." He drew the cub against his bare chest. The shock of cold flesh on cold fur made him wince. His skin prickled, muscles tightening instinctively against the chill. But he pressed the cub closer, wrapping both arms securely around it as he sealed his clothing back around them, one layer at a time, trapping as much heat as he could. The cub gave a weak, almost imperceptible twitch. Its tiny heartbeat fluttered against his ribs, the faintest echo of life. "Come on," he whispered. "Stay with me." He secured the zipper with numb fingers, ensuring no snow slipped in. He could feel the cub's cold radiating through the layers, sinking into him. Already he felt the drain, his own body fighting to warm something that couldn't warm itself. Most people wouldn't do this. Most people would never risk hypothermia to save a creature so close to death. He almost laughed at the thought. He wasn't most people. He started up the slope. The climb was brutal. Snow slipping under his boots, wind knocking him sideways, his breath burning in the back of his throat. Halfway up, his legs almost gave out, but the faint twitch against his sternum pulled him forward. The cub was still alive, and as long as it was alive, he couldn't stop. He braced himself against an outcropping and pushed onward, each step carved through pain and cold and exhaustion. The world narrowed to the sound of his breathing and the tiny heartbeat pressed against his chest. Just get back. Get back to the station. Get somewhere warm. Get the blood moving again. He stumbled over a hidden rock, caught himself on a branch, and bit back a curse that vanished in the wind. The snow hammered his face, stinging his eyes. His heart thudded wildly, uneven under the strain. "Just hold on," he gasped. Another twitch from inside his coat. Weak, but there. When he finally reached the top of the ridge, the station emerged through the blizzard, blurred, ghost-like, but real. Liam forced his legs to move faster, stumbling the last few yards. He threw his shoulder into the door, slamming it shut behind him as he collapsed to his knees on the cold floor. His breath came in ragged bursts. Slowly, carefully, he unzipped his coat. The cub lay limp against his bare chest, frost clinging to its whiskers, its tiny body shockingly cold. But its eyes, weak, glassy, opened a narrow slit. Liam stared at that faint spark of life. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay. I'm not losing you." He gathered the cub close, pushing himself to his feet. The storm raged outside. But inside the station, a different battle had just begun. One he wasn't willing to lose. The moment Liam slammed the station door shut behind him, the silence inside felt unreal, too sudden, too complete, as if the storm had been cut away with a knife. His breath came in short, hard bursts, fogging the air as he staggered toward the small cot near the stove. Snow clung to his eyelashes, melting into cold rivulets down his cheeks. He peeled open his coat with trembling fingers. The cub slid gently into his hands, limp, icy, barely breathing. For a terrifying second, Liam thought the tiny chest had stopped rising altogether. He pressed 2 fingers against the fragile ribs, waiting. 1 beat. A pause, another beat, faint as the flutter of a torn leaf. Still alive, but not for long. He laid the cub on a bundle of blankets near the stove, then lunged for the firebox. His hands shook so violently he dropped the first log, cursing under his breath as it thudded onto the floor. He grabbed another, shoved it inside, then another and another, feeding the stove until flames surged and the room glowed with rising heat. The cub didn't move. Liam knelt beside it, gently rubbing the tiny limbs with a towel, trying to stimulate circulation. The fur was stiff with frozen moisture, its skin icy beneath. He had seen bodies this cold before, patients pulled from winter car wrecks, hikers found half buried after nights on frozen trails. He knew exactly where the line was. He knew exactly how close the cub was to slipping past it. He grabbed his emergency thermos, poured water into a metal bowl, and set it near the stove to warm. While he waited, he checked the puncture wound below the cub's ear. The skin around it was inflamed, a faint purple ring spreading outward. A dart injury, not a natural puncture, not a branch or thorn. Someone had tried to take this animal. "Damn it," Liam muttered under his breath. "Who did this to you?" The cub gave no answer, only a faint, twitching jerk of its paw. Liam slid both hands under the small body and lifted it close to his chest again. His shirt was still damp from melted snow, cold against his skin, but he ignored it. He rubbed the cub's back in steady strokes, the way he used to soothe his daughter after nightmares. "Stay with me," he whispered. "Come on, kid, don't quit now." The fire's heat spread slowly across the room. The metal bowl of water warmed. Liam dipped a clean cloth into it, wrung it out, then let the cub suck tiny droplets from the fabric. The first attempt dribbled onto its chin. The second, the cub swallowed, barely. "That's it," Liam breathed, relief catching in his throat. "You're fighting. Good." He worked methodically, his mind sliding into the familiar rhythm of triage. Check breathing, check pulse. Keep warm. Prevent shock. Hydrate in microdoses. He cleaned the cub's fur, dried its paws, rubbed gently along its spine to encourage blood flow. But even as he worked, a darker current ran beneath the practiced motions, his own memories clawing their way up from the depths. He had held bodies like this before. Held his son's shoulders when the heartbeat slowed. Held his wife's hand during her last moments on the hospital bed. He had failed them. He couldn't fail this creature. Not tonight. Not after everything. The cub's eyes fluttered open for the first time, 2 pale slivers of icy blue-gray, unfocused but alive. The gaze wavered, then found him. Something passed between them. Fear, confusion, maybe recognition of warmth after a world of cold. Liam felt his breath falter. "There you are," he murmured. "Hi." The cub made a soft chirping sound. Weak, questioning. The same sound he'd heard through the storm, the same sound that had dragged him away from death and back into the world of the living. He reached out and stroked the top of its small head. The cub leaned into his hand with faint trust. "You're safe," Liam whispered. "I promise." He didn't realize he was crying until a drop splashed onto the cub's fur. He straightened, wiping his face with the back of his sleeve as he forced himself to stay focused. He prepared a diluted formula from powdered milk in the supply closet, something mild enough not to shock the cub's system. He warmed it carefully, testing temperature against his wrist just as he used to do with bottles for Grace. When he touched the soaked cloth to the cub's mouth again, it latched on weakly, sucking in tiny gulps. A tremor ran through its body, then another, as warmth began fighting its way back inside. "Good," Liam whispered. "That's it. That's the spirit." Minutes passed, then an hour. The storm raged outside, but inside the small station, the cub's breathing steadied, still shallow, still fragile, but stronger than it had been. At one point, the radio crackled, faint and broken. Liam startled, then crawled toward it on his knees, twisting the dial frantically. Static, a hiss. Then Maya's voice, faint, distorted. "Sightings. North fence. Keep watch. Someone..." The transmission cut out. Liam stared at the silent radio. Someone near the north fence. A dart wound on the cub. Poachers, hunters, people with money to gain and no conscience to lose. He looked back at the tiny creature curled in his blankets. Was someone still out there looking for it? Tracking it? Waiting for the storm to break so they could come finish what they started? The thought filled him with a heat far sharper than the fire. He stood, pacing the floor in tight, deliberate steps, checking the windows, the survival gear, the lock on the door. The station felt smaller now, as if danger pressed in from every angle. But when he turned back, the cub was watching him, eyes half open, unfocused, but curious. He exhaled slowly, letting the fear drain from his shoulders for the cub's sake. He sat down again, picking the tiny animal up with both hands. The fur was warming now, softer under his fingers. The cub shifted, made a small, breathy sound, and nestled against his palm. "I need to keep you alive," Liam said softly, "no matter what." It was a vow, quiet but unbreakable. The fire crackled, the storm roared, the station creaked under the wind's force. And in the circle of flickering light, Liam held the fragile heartbeat against his chest, realizing for the first time since his family died that he was fighting for something again. Not for redemption, not for forgiveness, for life. Small, cold, battered, and clinging to him with all it had left. He tightened his arms around the cub. "Okay," he whispered. "If you're not giving up, then neither am I." By morning, the storm had dulled from a roar to a steady moan, like some exhausted creature finally settling into sleep. Inside the station, however, Liam Carter had already been awake for hours, moving through the cramped room with the quiet purpose of a man who'd remembered too, late what it felt like to have something depending on him. The cub, still fragile, still bruised by cold and fear, lay bundled in a nest of blankets on the cot. Its breathing had steadied, each rise and fall small but rhythmic. A tiny victory. One Liam guarded with the vigilance of a soldier on watch. He poured warm water into a cup, dipped a cloth into it, and held the soaked fabric to the cub's lips. It licked feebly, swallowing drops with its little pink tongue. Liam smiled, despite the exhaustion tugging at his eyes. "Good job," he murmured. "You're stubborn. That's going to help." The cub blinked up at him, its eyes still that pale storm gray, too big for its head, too raw with need. When it tried to shift, it let out a tiny grunt, then buried its face deeper into the blanket. The movement was clumsy, almost clinging. It reminded him of Grace when she was a baby, pressing her face into the hollow of his collarbone, trusting him without ever needing reasons. A trust he had failed to earn later in her life. Liam swallowed hard, pushing down the memory. He reached for the powdered milk container, preparing a formula mixture according to the ratios he had used for injured fawns in the past, weak enough not to overwhelm, warm enough to comfort. He tested the temperature on his wrist. Perfect. As he brought the cloth toward the cub again, it did something new. Its oversized paw lifted, shaky, searching, and landed clumsily on his wrist. The tiny claws didn't dig in, they simply rested there, an anchor in a world that had turned upside down. Liam felt something crack open inside him. "Okay, little one," he whispered. "I'm here." The cub suckled more eagerly this time, drinking until its trembling eased. When it finished, it chirped, a quiet, breathy sound that sliced straight through the cold room and into the parts of Liam that had been numb for far too long. He'd heard that chirp once before, years ago, in a wildlife rehab center in Montana. Snow leopard cubs were known for it, a soft cry they used to call their mothers. Hearing it now stirred something deep, old, and painful. "You're looking for her," he murmured. "I know." He reached out and rubbed the cub's forehead gently. It leaned into the touch with a trust that was almost unbearable. Hours passed in a steady rhythm, feeding, warming, rubbing its limbs, checking vitals. By afternoon, the cub was strong enough to sit up on unsteady legs. It blinked at the room with slow, curious movements, its head swiveling toward every creak of the building. The cub attempted to stand, wobbled, and tipped sideways into Liam's lap. He chuckled, an unexpected, real laugh that startled him. He couldn't remember the last time he'd laughed without forcing it. "Well," he said softly, "you're persistent, I'll give you that." He stroked the cub's back again, feeling warmth rising through its body now. Warmth he'd fought hard to give it. It purred. Really purred. A soft, deep rumble that vibrated through its entire tiny frame. Liam froze. He had forgotten how that sound felt, vibrating against the palm, gentle but powerful, a living heartbeat wrapped in fur. "Ghost," he breathed. The word came out of nowhere, unplanned, instinctive. Yet the moment it left his mouth, he knew it fit. The pale coat, the silent movements, the way it appeared out of the storm like a spirit carved from snow and need. The cub lifted its head at the sound. Its ears twitched forward. "Ghost," Liam repeated. The cub chirped, an acknowledgement, a promise, and just like that, the name settled into place. Later that evening, the wind had calmed enough that Liam dared step outside for wood. The sky above churned with thick clouds, but somewhere beyond them the hint of moonlight seeped down, giving the snow a faint blue glow. As he reached the woodpile, he paused, listening. A crunch of snow, then another, deliberate, heavy, not the natural settling of drifts. He turned, peering into the tree line. Nothing moved, but the feeling stayed. That prickling awareness he used to get on ER night shifts when someone was watching too closely or when a patient's vitals dipped right before the alarms caught up. Someone was out there. He set the wood into his arms slowly, his eyes scanning the trees for any shift in shadow. The memory of the dart wound on Ghost's neck flashed in his mind. Sharp, undeniable. Poachers, hunters, people who looked at creatures like Ghost and saw only money or trophies. He stepped back toward the door, muscles tensing. A crow cawed sharply somewhere above him, startling him enough that he stumbled. When he regained balance, his heart hammered in his chest, pulse thudding through his ears. He backed into the station and locked the door. The room felt smaller now, the walls tighter, the storm quieter in a way that made every creak louder, more threatening. Ghost was curled in the blanket nest, eyes half-lidded, but when Liam entered, the cub stirred, letting out a questioning chirp. "I know," Liam whispered, crouching beside him. "I didn't like it either." Ghost climbed unsteadily onto Liam's hand, flattening himself against his palm for warmth. The gesture, so small, so instinctive, made Liam's throat tighten. For the next hour, he moved through the cabin with heightened awareness, checking windows, adjusting blankets, making sure the cub stayed warm. Every few minutes, Ghost would make a soft noise, and Liam would answer softly, as though the walls themselves might be listening. It wasn't until Ghost attempted to stand on all fours, wobbling, tail unsteady, determination fierce, that Liam felt the first stirrings of something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. The cub stumbled, overshot a step, and turned in a complete circle before landing squarely on Liam's boot. He laughed again, so sudden, so surprised, he had to steady himself on the table. Ghost looked up, bewildered, then chirped indignantly as if to say, "That wasn't supposed to happen." Liam knelt and scooped the cub gently into his arms. "You're going to be trouble, aren't you?" Ghost pressed his face against Liam's neck, purring. For the first time since the accident that shattered his life, Liam felt a piece of himself slowly, tentatively reconnect to the world. Not fixed, not healed, but moving. He sat on the cot, holding the small, warm weight against his chest as the fire crackled beside them. Outside, the wind shifted again, carrying with it the uneasy knowledge that someone else might be searching for Ghost. But inside the station, in that fragile pocket of warmth, Liam understood something with sudden clarity. This little creature needed him completely, absolutely. And for the first time in years, he needed something too. Not a purpose, not forgiveness. A life small enough to hold. A heartbeat close enough to feel. A chance, however fragile, to become human again. Ghost purred louder, burying his face into Liam's shirt. "Yeah," Liam whispered, stroking the soft fur. "We'll figure this out, you and me." And for the first time since the storm began, the monster of silence in the cabin loosened its grip. By early spring, Ghost had transformed from a frail, half-frozen bundle into a lively, sharp-eyed cub, with a will as strong as the mountains surrounding them. His coat had grown thick and bright, his rosettes defined like ink strokes on fresh snow. He could leap from the cot to the table in a single bound, usually when Liam wasn't looking, and had developed a habit of hiding behind the woodpile only to pounce on Liam's boots when he passed. But the growth came with something else too. Instinct. Wild, powerful instinct. It showed in Ghost's eyes when he stared too long out the window at drifting clouds, or when he stiffened at the distant call of birds he'd never heard before. And it showed most clearly the morning Liam took him outside for the first time. The snow was melting, revealing patches of brown earth, moss and winter-flattened grass. The sky was brighter, soft with thin sunlight. Liam opened the station door and Ghost stepped out hesitantly, nose quivering as he took in the world beyond the walls that had saved him. The cub's pupils widened. He chirped, then moved forward cautiously, touching the snow with one paw as though testing the memory of the cold that had almost taken him. "It's different now," Liam murmured. "Not so bad when the sun's out." Ghost's tail twitched. He lowered his head, sniffed a tuft of grass, then let out a small sneeze that made Liam laugh. Moments later, Ghost ventured farther, too far, chasing a drifting leaf. Liam stepped quickly in front of him, blocking the slope that dropped sharply into the ravine below. "No," Liam warned gently. "Not that way." Ghost sat down, looking up at him with a tilt of the head that was pure defiance. "Yeah," Liam sighed. "You get that from me." Over the following weeks, Liam began teaching Ghost what he would need to survive, trying to bridge the impossible gap between captivity and the wild. It wasn't just food or shelter. It was instinct, skill, caution. He taught Ghost the scent of danger by placing cloths soaked in grizzly and wolf odor near the station perimeter. The cub would arch his back, fur puffing up, tail sticking straight out like a plume. Sometimes he'd hiss. Sometimes he'd sprint behind Liam's legs and peer out cautiously, his dignity wounded. He taught Ghost how to stalk, how to move silently across patches of snow and dirt. They practiced in the clearing behind the station, Liam walking slowly, Ghost crouched low, following with a belly-sliding crawl that looked comical on days when he was too excited to stay focused. He even showed Ghost small prey, mice caught in humane traps, released at a distance so the cub could learn the rhythm of the chase without danger. Ghost failed miserably at first, pouncing too early or tumbling headfirst into the snow. But each failure came with a spark of determination that reminded Liam just how deeply the cub belonged to the wild. Every night, they returned to the station. Ghost sprawled across Liam's lap or curled up at his feet, purring. Liam fed him, cleaned the soft pads of his paws, and whispered assurances he wasn't sure whether the cub understood. But a quiet unease was growing in the background. It began with the radio, broken for weeks, flickering awake just long enough to spit out a half-formed warning from Maya. Something about federal review, asset inventory, and increased oversight. Liam tried calling back, but the radio died completely before he could make sense of it. The second sign came a week later, when Ethan returned unexpectedly with a stranger in tow. The stranger introduced herself with a firm handshake and a badge clipped to her jacket. Riley Hayes, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Tall, blunt, sharp-eyed. Riley surveyed the rescue station like someone assessing both the structure and the man running it. Her gaze lingered on the scratches on the door, the paw prints near the woodpile, the faint smell of fresh meat on the wind. "You been seeing any unusual activity up here this season?" she asked. "Just the storm damage," Liam replied. "Still clearing paths?" Riley nodded, though her expression didn't soften. "We've had reports of non-native big cat sightings. Hard to confirm. Snow leopards aren't exactly tourists in Colorado." Ethan shot Liam a subtle look. Warning, maybe, or apology. Riley continued. "If anyone's keeping an animal off record, now's the time to say something. The agency's clamping down. No more lenience, no more unofficial rehabs." Her tone made Liam's stomach twist. Ghost was in the back room, hidden behind crates, asleep under blankets. Liam had checked 3 times before Riley arrived, making sure no tuft of pale fur peeked out. He forced a calm nod. "Haven't seen anything unusual." Riley held his gaze for a long, heavy beat. Too long. Then she turned away. "We'll be running patrols. Stay alert." Liam didn't breathe until she left the station. When the truck finally pulled away, Ghost padded out from the back room, blinking sleepily. He chirped, rubbing his face against Liam's leg. Liam knelt and scooped him into his arms, pressing his forehead to the cub's. "They can't find you," he whispered. "Not now. Maybe not ever." Ghost purred, unaware of the danger tightening around their small world. As spring deepened, Ghost grew stronger, faster. His muscles developed under Liam's training, movements gaining the sleek confidence of a true predator. And with that growth came moments that broke Liam's heart with their clarity. Ghost began staring longer at the tree line, sniffing more intently at the wind, listening for sounds Liam couldn't hear. One morning, Ghost didn't come when called. Liam found him perched on a ridge above the station, staring out over the valley with an expression that was unmistakably longing. "You feel it, don't you?" Liam murmured, climbing up beside him. "The world calling you back." Ghost didn't look at him. Not at first. Only when Liam sat down did the cub finally press his head into Liam's shoulder. One brief gesture of affection before turning his gaze outward again. Liam's throat tightened. He had known from the beginning this creature couldn't stay with him forever. But knowing didn't soften the fear, or the hurt, or the guilt of wanting Ghost to stay, even when he knew staying wasn't living. He was still sitting there when Ghost suddenly tensed, ears angled sharply toward the tree line. Liam followed his gaze. 2 figures moved among the trees, far away but unmistakable. One lifted binoculars, The other held something longer. A rifle? A tranquilizer gun? Poachers? Or federal agents? Or both? Ghost pressed against Liam's leg nervously. Liam wrapped an arm around the cub, heart pounding. "Come on," he whispered. "We're going inside." He carried Ghost back to the station as calmly as he could, but inside, terror churned in him like a rising storm. Ghost was no longer safe here, and Liam was running out of time. Outside, unseen, the figures disappeared into the shadows of the forest, as silent and patient as hunters waiting for the right moment to strike. The next morning dawned gray and restless, as if the sky itself sensed what was coming. A thin fog spread across the valley, curling between the spruces like cold breath. Liam hadn't slept at all. He sat at the small wooden table with a mug of untouched coffee, watching Ghost pace the room in slow, deliberate circles. The cub sensed the tension. Animals always did. His tail hung low, ears flicking sharply at every small sound outside. Liam had spent half the night replaying the sight of those figures on the ridge, one with binoculars, the other with something long and metallic. Poachers? Enforcement officers? Both posed danger. One wanted a trophy, the other wanted confiscation. Neither option ended with Ghost alive and free. He knew what he had to do. He'd always known this day would come, but not like this. Not forced by fear, not rushed by strangers closing in. He'd hoped spring would bring time to teach, time to prepare, time to soften the edges of the inevitable goodbye. But goodbyes rarely asked permission. They came when they wanted, like storms. Ghost stopped pacing and looked at him, head tilted, eyes filled with a question Liam wished he could answer honestly. "Come here, buddy," Liam whispered. The cub hopped onto his lap, heavier now, warm and steady. Liam wrapped his arms around Ghost's thickening frame, burying his face in the winter-soft fur. The scent was wild now, pine, snow, and something older than instinct itself. "I need to take you home," he murmured. "Not our home. Yours." Ghost pressed his forehead against Liam's chin, a gesture he had begun doing only in the past month, a sign of trust and affection. Liam closed his eyes. If he hesitated, Ghost would pay the price. By midday, Liam had packed a small rucksack with supplies, dried meat, water, 2 handheld radios he'd managed to patch together, and a long coil of climbing rope. He scribbled a note to Maya and Ethan, leaving it taped to the cabin door. Had to relocate research equipment into high country. Will check in when stable. It wasn't exactly a lie. It just left out the part about a snow leopard cub and goodbye. Ghost followed him closely as they stepped outside. The fog had thinned but still clung low to the ground, muffling sound and turning the world into a quiet, shifting canvas. Liam headed toward the narrow trail leading out of the station, Ghost walking beside him without hesitation. That alone nearly undid him. Ghost's trust, so complete, so absolute, felt heavier than the pack on his shoulders. The climb into the high country took hours. The terrain grew steeper, rockier, snow-patchier, but still slick with melt. Twice Ghost bounded too far ahead, and Liam's heart leapt into his throat before the cub circled back, chirping impatiently as if urging him to keep up. They reached the first ridge just after sunset. Orange light bled across the peaks, turning them into jagged silhouettes. Below, the valley stretched endlessly. Safe, beautiful, and suddenly too small for the animal Ghost was becoming. Liam knelt beside him. "This is part of it," he said softly. "Your mother's kind lived on mountains like these, born in altitude, built for distance, built for silence." Ghost sniffed the wind, body stiffening as unfamiliar scents filled his senses. A marmot screeched somewhere between the rocks. A grouse beat its wings in startled panic. Ghost's head swiveled sharply toward each sound. Instinct awakening, calling, pulling. Liam swallowed hard. "You're meant to know all of this," he said. "Not from me, from the world itself." They made camp in a shallow rock alcove near the ridge. Liam built a small fire, careful to shield the smoke trail with a line of broken branches. Ghost curled beside him, eyes half-lidded but ears flicking at every sound in the dark. Liam barely slept. Dawn came too soon. A pale, cold blue washed over the mountains, turning them ghost-like. Fitting, Liam thought. Too fitting. He led Ghost another mile upward, toward a plateau flanked by cliffs and open meadows. A natural hunting ground, rich and sheltered. It was the safest territory he had found during his scouting trips weeks earlier. "This is it," Liam said as they reached the plateau. Ghost stopped. He didn't sit, didn't chirp, just stared up at Liam, eyes locked on his face, as if he knew, as if everything in him understood what Liam had been trying to hide since yesterday. Liam crouched, the cold sharp against his knees. "Ghost, listen to me." His voice cracked. He forced it steady. "You can't stay with me anymore. They're coming, and if they find you, they'll take you. Or worse." Ghost stepped closer, pushing his forehead into Liam's chest. Liam grabbed him, held him, harder than he meant to, burying his face in the cub's thick fur. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so damn sorry." Ghost purred, deep and rumbling, but the sound carried confusion too. Concern, even. The cub didn't understand why the man who had never once left him was suddenly shaking. Liam finally pulled away. He stood, turned, and began walking. Slowly, purposefully. He didn't look back. He couldn't. He made it 20 yards before he heard the soft patter of paws behind him. Ghost was following. "Ghost?" "No." His voice was barely breath. He faced forward again and walked faster. The footsteps quickened too. Liam's chest tightened. "Please, don't do this." He wasn't sure if he was talking to Ghost or to himself. 50 yards, then 60, then nothing. No footsteps. Silence. It hit him like a stone to the ribs. He turned slowly, terrified, uncertain. Ghost stood still on the plateau, staring right at him. The cub's body trembled, not from cold, but from something deeper. Conflict, instinct, love, in the only language a wild creature could understand. Ghost took one step forward. Liam's heart stopped. Then Ghost stopped himself. He looked toward the tree line, toward the wind, toward the life calling him, and then the cub turned away. Not dramatically, not ceremoniously, just quietly, naturally, like a wild creature choosing what it was born to choose. Liam lifted a hand, fingers shaking. Ghost paused only once, just once, silhouetted against the pale morning light, rosettes glowing faintly on his thickening coat. Liam whispered, too softly for anything but the wind to hear, "Be brave, buddy." Ghost moved into the forest without a sound. Gone. The silence that fell over the plateau afterward was the heaviest Liam had ever felt. It pressed into him, filled him, hollowed him. Yet beneath the grief, sharp and immediate, there was something gentler too. Pride, love, the ache of doing the right thing even when it shattered him. He wiped his face with the back of his hand, took one steadying breath, and began the long walk back down the mountain. Behind him, somewhere in the sprawling wilderness, a young snow leopard took his first real steps into the life he was always meant to live. Spring came down the mountains the way it always did. Slow, quiet, steady. The snow thinned. Streams cut new paths through thawing earth. Birds returned first, then foxes, then the larger animals bold enough to explore the changing world. Liam watched it all through the cabin window with a kind of aching detachment. It had been 2 weeks since Ghost walked into the tree line and didn't come back. He tried to focus on practical things, repairing the generator, drying firewood, organizing field notes, but every routine felt stripped of color. The cabin, which once felt like a fragile sanctuary, now seemed too still, too quiet. He kept turning to the doorway, expecting to see Ghost barreling inside with an oversized rabbit in his mouth or chirping impatiently for food. But the door stayed empty. Liam told himself this was good. This was right. This was what he'd fought for. Ghost needed space, instinct, freedom, not a man's affection trapping him in a world too small for a predator. He repeated it daily, like a mantra meant to take the edge off the silence. But grief didn't dissolve just because logic made sense. It clung the same way winter clung to the north side of the ridge, thin but stubborn, waiting for warmth to finally melt it away. He tried not to look for footprints around the cabin. He tried not to hope when he heard branches snap at night. But hope, it seemed, had a will of its own. As the season settled, Liam packed for departure. 2 rangers would arrive within days to escort him back to the foothill station. He had a job waiting for him in Colorado, a conservation photography project he'd agreed to before winter swallowed him whole. He folded maps, wrapped camera gear, and boxed notes for transfer. In the corner of the cabin sat a small wooden crate, Ghost's first nest, the one Liam built from scraps the night he found him freezing in the snow. Liam brushed a hand over the worn edges. It still smelled faintly of smoke and memories. He left it behind. Some things belonged to a chapter that couldn't be carried forward. Around noon, he stepped outside with the last packed bag. The air was warm enough to smell earth instead of ice. A light breeze pushed through the pines, carrying the scent of melting snow. Then he froze. Tracks, fresh ones, pressed cleanly into the damp soil just yards from the front steps. Large, wide-padded, unmistakable. Snow leopard. His pulse hammered in his throat. He knelt, studying the angles, the depth, the gait. The animal hadn't been running. These were slow, curious, deliberate steps. An inspection pattern. Ghost had been here. Not days ago. Not last night. Hours. Liam stood slowly, scanning the tree line with a hunter's caution, but a father's hope. Ghost, he said softly, knowing full well the mountains rarely answered. Still a part of him waited. But no shape emerged. No chirp echoed back. Only the wind moved. A bittersweet smile pulled at Liam's mouth. The cub, no, the young cat now, had chosen to return just long enough to ensure the human who raised him was still alive. Close enough to watch, far enough to remain wild. Maybe that was all the goodbye he would get. Two days later, the Rangers arrived, Maya and Ethan, bundled in lighter gear now that winter had loosened its grip. They greeted Liam with a familiar mix of relief and curiosity. "Station looks good," Ethan remarked. "Did you manage okay up here by yourself?" Liam offered the practiced smile he'd worked on for weeks. "More than okay." Maya eyed him, perceptive as always. "Looks like you had company." Liam's heart lurched. "What do you mean?" She pointed at the tree line. "Tracks. Big ones. And not old." Liam swallowed. "Probably just a lynx." Maya raised a brow. "A lynx with 12-inch paws?" He didn't answer. She didn't press. Some truths didn't need to be spoken to be understood. They helped him load the truck, then did one last safety sweep of the site. Before stepping into the vehicle, Liam turned to take in the cabin one last time. The small wooden shelter that held his grief, thus his survival, and the small miracle that shifted the course of his life. A single thought pressed through him. This place will always belong to Ghost, more than it does to me. The transition back to normal life was bumpy. Grocery aisles felt overwhelming. Conversations felt too quick, too bright, too crowded. He found himself pausing mid-sentence because his mind drifted to the sound of paws against snow or a tiny chirp echoing in a stone shelter. But he worked, he traveled, he photographed, he breathed, and slowly the world stopped feeling like a cage. 3 months later, he was deep in the Rockies following a bighorn sheep herd when his chest tightened unexpectedly. Not the sharp pain of a heart attack, but the strange, heavy squeeze of memory unpacking itself too fast. He sat on a boulder, letting the mountain wind cool him. A shadow shifted at the edge of his vision. He turned. A pale shape stood at the ridge, high above him, massive, powerful, unmistakably wild. Ghost, older now, fully grown. His coat thick and pale like winter sunlight, marked with the rosettes Liam knew better than the lines of his own palm. The cat watched him with eyes that held something impossibly familiar. Recognition, memory, something softer than wild instinct. Liam didn't move, didn't speak, didn't dare break the moment by trying to claim it. Ghost stepped closer, not near enough to bridge the distance between man and mountain cat, but close enough for Liam to see the slight bend in his tail, the old healed injury from a fall long ago. A reminder, a story, a bond. Ghost lowered his head, an acknowledgement, not submission, not affection the way humans show it, but a gesture that spoke in the language of the wild. I know you. You mattered. The cat held the gaze for several seconds more. Then he turned, muscles rolling beneath his coat, and walked gracefully back toward the ridge. He paused once, just once, silhouetted against the dying light, a ghost returning to the world where he belonged. Liam whispered, "Be safe." And this time, the words didn't break him. They freed him. He returned to camp with a steadier stride. That night, as he reviewed photos and wrote his notes, he realized something simple but profound. He had let Ghost go, and Ghost had returned on his own terms. Not to stay, not to be kept, but to remind him that what they shared wasn't lost. It had simply grown, wilder, wider, freer. A gift from a creature who owed him nothing, yet still offered him grace. When Liam finally crawled into his sleeping bag, the mountains felt less like a wilderness and more like a companion breathing quietly around him. Ghost was out there somewhere, alive, thriving, exactly as he should be. And Liam, older, steadier, healed in ways he hadn't realized, finally felt the same.